overcomer. And so that's the two things that my mama taught me. She said, you know what? If you live by those two things, you will be all right. I said, deal or no deal. So as I got into this message, and I thought about the presidential debate, not the debate, the presidential election. And I don't know if your candidate won or not, but I just want to let you know I'm happy this week. And so as we go along, so as I went along, I thought about now that it's over. You heard folks say all week, now they have to make a deal on this physical cliff. And it made me think about how folks would try to position themselves to make the deal what's best for them. And I want to let you know something. You got to be careful on this Christian journey, because folks will say they have your best interest, but really what they're trying to do is get out in front of something so that they look good at the end. And I don't know about you, but I've been blindsided by some folks. I've been hit in the head by folks. And then when I look back, all I could say was, oh my God, did I really make that mistake? Say deal or no deal. But as we get into this, it's some certain things that you have to know that if you're not going to take this deal, you have to be careful of. See, because it's all about one thing with us. It's about not taking the deal that the banker gives you. See, because I've been in some situations where the banker, let me tell you something, he made that deal mighty sweet. And I had to look back and say, who would know? Who gonna find out? And then I always, see, because as you know, because our God is a forgetful God. He's a forgiving God. He's also a gracious God. You know, we got to be careful, because we'll fall into the trap of I can always ask for forgiveness. And so here's the things that you have to look out for when you get ready to deal with this deal or no deal. Just like Meshach, Shadrach, and then here's what they had to do. The first thing that you have to do is, if you're not going to take this deal, some things that you have to look out for. The first thing you have to deal with is the report of the spies. What do you mean? The report of the spies. I wish I could stand here and tell you that you only have spies. The only spies in your life will be folks that don't like you. I wish I could stand here and tell you that the only spies that you have are on your job. I wish I could tell you that the only spies you have are the spies that's in your family. But I gotta be honest with you. You got some church folks that are spies too. And so in the name of Jesus, I said you got to deal with the report of the spies. If you go to verse 12, the Bible says that there are certain Jews that wouldn't told them. They told them that there are certain Jews that could king no king. There's certain folks that ain't doing what you said. So they talk to spies. Here's what I like about it. You know, you got to be careful with the report of the spies. See, because it's not when the spies tell them something wrong on you that you got to be careful. What happens when the spies are telling the truth on you? See, because watch this. As you deal with the report of the spies, you have to ask yourself 3 questions about spies. And the first question is, why do we have spies? Yeah. Look at your neighbor and say, why do we have spies? I'm glad somebody asked. I think I'll answer this. The reason why you have spies is because it keeps you honest. What do you mean it keeps me honest? Because if you know somebody's watching you, you got a tendency to do things a little different. And so that's the reason why you have spies. What's the purpose of spies? I'm glad you asked. The second thing, what's the purpose of spies? The purpose of spies is to set up God. I'm going to let that spin for a minute. What do you mean set up God? Set up God to get all the glory when it comes out. See, because guess what? God puts you in position not for you, but for him to get the glory when it comes out. And so that's the second thing. And now, who are the spies in my life? Look at your neighbor and say, are you ready for this? Yeah, I'm going to tell you anyway. And so here we go. So who are the spies in your life? If you look at verse 12, no. You got to go back to verse 5. And it says that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, all quickly you fall down and worship. Here is how you know who the spies are in your life. The spies are those folks that are so busy watching you that they can't even do what they're supposed to do. See, because the Bible says that he said all shall bow and worship. If they was down bowing and worship, they couldn't have been watching what you was doing. And I don't know about you, but you know you got some folks on your job that they're so busy watching you, they can't even get their own reports in. They're so busy trying to find mistakes on your reports, they can't even get their own stuff done. You got folks in church so busy worrying about how the music sounds, they can't even get their praise on. You got deacons so busy worrying about what the preacher is preaching that they can't even do what they're supposed to do. And so you got to be careful. That's how you know who the spies are in your life, because they're so busy watching you. They can't even do what they're supposed to do. And I don't know about you, but when I identify a spy, I treat them like a spy. How do you treat spies? My mama used to tell me, you feed them with a long-handled spoon. And so that's what I do. I don't get all nasty with them. See, because guess what? I'm one of those crazy ones that believe that God placed you in my life for a reason. And if he made you a spy in my life, you have a purpose in my life. So I'm not going to try to make it so obvious. See, because sometimes before I got saved, see, I would tell you, I see what you're doing, and you keep on. Don't let me catch you after work, because I'm going to get your tail. But now, I'm a little more cool with it now. Yeah, every time, and see, God gives you hints of who the spies are. You know you have folks that normally, they don't come around your cubicle. But when it comes time for your reports to come in, how did you do this? What we need to do different on this report? They always got to know what you're doing. You got to be careful about those folks. Now be careful, let me make it clear. I'm not talking about the folks who's supposed to be checking on you. I'm talking about the folks that are your co-workers. I'm not talking about your bosses. See, because guess what? God placed them over you, and they got a right to ask you. So don't say the preacher told me. If the boss come around, that ain't what I told you. So don't get me in there. But you got to be careful about, you got to deal with the report of the spies. See, because the spies gonna set you up, and their sole purpose is to make sure that other folks know that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And so now I had to deal with the spies. And see, I'm one of those ones that believe I don't have a problem when it's the truth. See, because guess what? If I did it, I did it. Right. But sometimes spies lie on you. And the question is because, remember, the spies are normally sent. God sends spies, but guess what? The devil sends spies your way too. And so sometimes you have to be careful when the lies come. See, you have to be careful that you don't react in a way that's not like God. See, because we also know that he says that he's coming back. He's coming back for a church without spot or wrinkle. We don't know the hour or the time. I would hate for you to get caught up in some mess and God comes back. So they had to deal with the spies. Look at your neighbor and say, deal or no deal. Because right now, I'm still good. See, my deal is still intact. I don't want to trade my briefcase in. Right now, I'm still holding on to my briefcase that says when he comes back, he'll be able to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And so the second thing that you have to deal with, now I'm going to hurt somebody. Put your seatbelt on, because this one going to hurt. And so I like to go warn you. Buckle up. The second thing that you have to deal with, you have to deal with the ultimatum. You have to deal with the ultimatum. Watch this. The Bible says in verse 15, he says, either you buy or you burn. Either you buy or you burn. Now, most of us would say, now that we look back at it, oh, I would have did the same thing. Would you? Would you? Because if you think about it, they had every reason to lie. Because the Bible says when in Rome, do as the Romans do. The Bible says give Caesar what's due Caesar. The Bible says obey those that have rule over you. So they had every reason. What am I trying to say to you? Be careful, because you can make the Bible say what you want it to say. Yeah, but watch this. The one thing that my God told me is he says, if you love me, you obey my commandments. And watch this. One of his commandments says that you should have no other God before me. And so now you got to ask yourself, do I want to be more popular with man or more powerful with God? And so in other words, you got an ultimatum that's coming. You said buy or burn. Young folks, this is what I came to tell you today. I know this ain't you, sir, but here's what I came to tell you today. Understand that all ultimatums have a consequence. Yeah, let me say that again. All ultimatums have a consequence. And don't make an ultimatum unless you're prepared to deal with the consequences. See, Nebuchadnezzar made an ultimatum, but he wasn't prepared for the answer. And you can't make ultimatums unless you're prepared to go all the way through with it. I've heard folks say, you don't let me do this, I'm going to leave the church. And the pastor said, leave. You caught off guard because you thought the ultimatum was going to make somebody do what you wanted them to do. So you have to deal with the ultimatum. And so the ultimatum was, you either buy or you burn. And watch this. You still got to remember, I'm holding on to my case. And the case says that to die is to live again. And so as I keep going along, to ultimatum, now that when I look at it, I'll be able to say, you know what? Maybe I would have did what the boys did. But you got to ask yourself, do you have trust in God? What do you mean, do I have trust in God? See, because trust, I got a new meaning of trust. Trust is the reason you stop thinking. Let me say that again. Trust, the reason you stop thinking. See, because if I have enough faith in God, I can stop thinking about what I need to do. I can stop thinking about what has happened to me because I trust God. So deal with the ultimatum. And so they dealt with the ultimatum. They said, no, we still ain't gonna bow. Now watch this. Be careful how you answer and how you phrase it. They said, we don't have to be careful. We don't have to be careful. We already know that our mind is made up. You can't change my mind. You can't take nothing you can say or do that's going to change my mind. Christians, we got to ask ourselves, do we stand that firm? Have you drawn a line in the sand that when folks say, if they come across your life, you remember when you was growing up, you used to draw lines in the sand. You cross that line, it's on. You cross that line and it's on. Somebody walk across it, you draw another line, cross that line. But in the Christian life, have you drawn a line and say, I will not go cross that line? I don't care how enticing it is. You're not going to be able to draw me across the line that I know God has drawn for me. Come on. So deal with the ultimatum. I want to let you know something. You're going to have plenty of ultimatums in your life. You're going to have to, watch this. The ultimatum is that point where you have to leave folks alone. I hate it. You know, I hate when God gives me an ultimatum. I hate it because I know it means it's time for me to purge something else. I know that it's time. And normally, when you're doing what you're supposed to do, God is only growing you. And sometimes I don't like to grow. I cannot be honest with you. Sometimes I like to still do things that I'm doing. But I know when God says, this is the ultimatum. Give it up or deal with me.
That's right.
And I have to give it up. See, because guess what? We have learned to be comfortable in the situation that we're in. We have learned to not want to grow. Look, sometimes it's all right, God, if you leave me here for a little while. It's not as bad. I've grown used to doing what I'm doing. But deal with the ultimatum. And so the ultimatum was burn, bow or burn.